My name is Harry McCann and I'm a member of the European Pool of Young Journalists, and I'm here at the offices of the European Commission representation in Ireland to meet with the European Commissioner for Financial Services, Financial Stability and Capital Markets Union, Mairead McGuinness. We'll be discussing the future of finance and hearing why the Commissioner wants to hear from those aged between 18 and 25 about their ideas for the European Year of Youth. Commissioner, a report by Eurofund last year, which examined the impact of COVID-19 on young people in the EU, said the millennial generation has become the first generation not to improve on the previous one in terms of wealth, income and future prospects. The European Year of Youth is obviously focused on the challenges of young people, but how can we ensure there's a greater lasting legacy there for young people?
Well, I think the reason we have the year is precisely because we know that young people had a horrible time during COVID. Lots of people did, but young people in particular, because I think in your formative years when you can't go to college and, there was changes in work practices, it impacts not just now, but the long term. I suppose when I look back at my own, coming out in college and that, and I went through the 1980s, and in the 1980s, it was very gloomy. The prospects were very poor and people were very despondent. I wouldn't like to think that our young people get despondent, which is why we have this European year focusing on youth, addressing the challenges, but also the opportunities for young people in a very changing world, a very challenging world. So I think at the end of this year, we will need to look back and say, did we give people hope? Did we give some clarity as to what we can do to make things better for young people? And maybe not just focus on young people today, because, one day you will be as old as I am. I mean, it'll take a while, but you will get there. I hope you do, and longer. And you don't think of pensions today, but you certainly will think of them at that age. And through my work in the financial services area, I'm trying to get all of us to think more about money, how to make it work for us. And really to the point of your question, COVID changed many things. It caused a lot of mental health issues for young and old. And I think the European Year of Youth is to actually say to young people, you matter in a European context. We want to hear your voice and we want to reflect your concerns or indeed your hopes in the work that we do in the Commission.
Yeah, and one of those, I suppose, from a future perspective is providing financial certainty to young people. So, fortunately or fortunately, in a lot of cases, when young people are trying to balance education and work, they're looking for flexible work, they're in precarious forms of employment. But as a result of that, they're more likely to be affected by an economic crisis and are often the hardest hit. So how can we provide more financial certainty to people like myself who are in college and working at the same time and are fearful that, they could lose their job in the morning if something happens?
Yeah, I suppose when you're young, you worry maybe about these things, as I did when I was in that stage. And maybe it's to say, look, some things are not certain, but some things are. So are you comfortable enough with money? Do you understand how your money works for you? Are you looking at investments, and where are you looking? So I think the way you can help around uncertainty is knowledge and information, because that is power. On the point where today young people will have different careers, that seems very clear. But look at what has happened since COVID. We actually almost have full employment. It's quite extraordinary that we might have imagined it to be the other way, that people would lose jobs and there would be a lot of people looking for work. Now you have employers saying we cannot get people, young or old, to take up these jobs. That will put pressure too on the returns, on the payment for various careers. So I think in one sense, while I understand fully the worries around uncertainty, maybe now is a time where people that are, have gone through college, have come out with no fixed idea, but are willing to work, can find opportunities. And the wider picture then is around, moving careers, pension rights, when you're trying to buy a home, and the housing market across Europe is difficult for young people, when you're trying to raise a family, if you need childcare. So I think what young people should really help us with is to be demanding, to look at what your needs are now, but also what your needs will be for the future. And that we then as policymakers should address them. And we will be doing that, for example, in some of the results of the Conference on the Future of Europe.
Yeah, and there was a lot of concerns, I suppose, about finance, and a lot of people expressed a lot of great opinions in the Conference on the Future of Europe. And I suppose one of those things was more knowledge. And you mentioned knowledge, and knowledge is power, especially when it comes to finance. And there has been conversations about the need for more financial education in schools in particular, around saving, around debt, about spending. Do you think that we need to do more to improve financial literacy in the EU?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say we need to be more financially aware. We need to talk about money. In my experience, men talk about money a bit more than women talk about money when we're in our separate huddles, but everyone needs to talk about money because it matters. And I always say to people, look, you work hard for your money. Regardless of what you paid, you've worked hard to get that money. Are you sure that your money is working hard for you? So if you're borrowing, do you know the best rates, where they are, and how to access loans? Would you be able to put forward a proposal for a mortgage? Because sometimes it's the approach to a lending institution helps you get the results that you want. And really what I want us all to be capable of is to have the confidence to ask questions about our money. Not everybody has that, so they might go into the bank or whoever they're dealing with, or indeed online, because nobody goes into a bank anymore. Hands up, I'm old. Even I've stopped. But I think even in the online space, you need to be able to probe and be questioning about where your money will end up. One of the things that's really interesting, we did a lovely group of winners, this European money quiz, and in fact 2 of them were young Irish people, which was fantastic. They came third. And those that are interested in it are really well aware, and those that are not aware at all. And it does matter for your, not only for your financial health, but actually we know that people who are able to manage money, who have, you know, reserves when there's a crisis, they have better health. And I think that matters.
And future finance, the conversation comes back time and time again to cryptocurrency, right? And policymakers are concerned, there's expressed a lot of concern about the volatility and the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies. Are you concerned by how many people are investing, and in particular young people who are investing considerable amounts of money in cryptocurrencies at the moment?
Well, look, Harry, you've exactly said that sentence. Young people are investing large amounts of money at the moment. And I was aware of this because I'm listening to what young people are saying. We need to do more of that in the financial world, because if we only legislate for the older generation, the traditional, we'll get it wrong. I'm concerned that young people are borrowing to invest in cryptocurrencies. And if you look what has happened over the last couple of weeks, it's gone horribly wrong for some people. I'm really worried about the social and mental health impacts. We're hearing horrible stories where people who've gone in too far, you know, have taken drastic measures around their own lives because they are in such an awful place. Crypto is really interesting. There are some parts of it that might, you know, be innovative and helpful for the future. But it really is based on you believe in crypto, I believe in crypto, and we both believe it's going to always increase in value. Well, guess what? It doesn't. And there's no guarantee underneath it. One good point, at European level, we're legislating for it. So the future will be better than the past. We don't want to see anyone, young or old, to be burnt by investing in something which is not what it should be and not what it says, particularly those that are supposed to be pegged with the other currencies. So I would urge people to be cautious about your money. You know, not to just rush in because your neighbour is doing it or your pal is betting on the phone or investing on the phone. But maybe the word betting and investing on an app are kind of the same.
So do you think it's a mix of, I suppose, education and legislation hand in hand?
Yeah, we have to legislate because, you know, where there are risks, we need to regulate those risks. And I think around education, it's always to ask questions. So don't just look at, I mean, if you're on social media, ads come up all the time to invest in crypto. And if you have a friend who's invested and they tell you that theirs is worth $1 million, it's kind of very attractive to say, well, I'll put in a few bob, maybe even too much, because they've made money. But they're only making money because you keep adding money, somebody else keeps adding money. But the minute money begins to pull away from this, it can go downhill, and downhill very fast. I've heard some really horrible stories about what's happening around crypto, and I think we need to think long and hard about it. There's also the issue that some who invest in crypto don't want to be in the regulated financial world. They see crypto as democratizing, if you like, the whole financial system. And the worry is they're outside of the frame. At the European level, we've decided they need to be in, and we need to regulate. But not kind of say everything about it is bad, to see what might be useful, particularly the technologies. And we're also looking at things like digital central bank currencies, digital euro, which is kind of an interesting development. China's doing it, other central banks are doing it. I mean, I think the world of finance that you will grow up in, I mean, I say that with all due respect, you are growing up, but I'm well aged at this stage, will be very different than the world of finance that I've experienced thus far. COVID has changed a lot of things. It accelerated digitalization of the financial world. Bank branches are closing, and that means other things change as well. And as regulators, we need to be aware of that.
And you mentioned the digital euro, and President von der Leyen said the currency of the future is what she described the euro as, and the 20th anniversary this year. And we've heard about the digital euro, we've heard about the idea of a cashless Europe. What is the currency of the future? What is the future of the euro, and how are we going to be using our money?
Huge questions. First of all, I'm the commissioner that defends the right to use cash, because a lot of member states, citizens want to use cash. It's private, it's very secure, you know what it's worth. So cash is important. But people are using, we're using our wallets. We don't even have cards now. We can just tap and run. So we have to be mindful of the next steps. So a digital currency seems to me be one of those next steps. Using technologies in the payment area, because payments are huge, but they're costly. So we're talking about things like instant payments. And really what I'd like to hear from young people is, what do you think the financial system or the financial world should look like for you as a young person? Where do you find it inaccessible, and where do you think it could change, and indeed change dramatically? So I would always say that if we look to the past, we will not see fully the future. We have to learn from the past where things went wrong, but realise that the future of finance is not in physical infrastructure, it's in technologies, it's in speed, it's in new ways of doing things, and we have to be ready for that.
You said you want to hear from young people.
Yep.
You've opened a competition asking people to share their views in the future of finance. So those between 18 and 25 can share their views on finance with you by posting a 60-second video on social media, #MyFutureFinance for the European Year of Youth. Why do you want to hear from young people? Why is this important to you?
Because young people are the future, not just in finance, but definitely in finance. And I think young people think differently, they're open to new ideas, they can see what doesn't work in terms of the traditional system. And I think in a very punchy way, they can give me access to a whole wealth of knowledge that is out there in the younger generation, and help us make better policy. I mean, the whole idea of having engagement is to make better policy. If you look at the developing world, where there is a huge percentage of young people, because they're very young, and they have more children, and there's more young people coming through the system, they're, if you like, jumping away from traditional. They haven't gone through the traditional banking system. They're banking on their phones. So already you're seeing dramatic changes in the world of finance. And I would like to hear really interesting ideas. The quirkier, the more unusual, sometimes the better. I want to hear the criticism too. I'm sure there'll be people who have a lot to say in 1 minute about the financial system. So we're open to all ideas, and it's great that you will help us push this project, because the more people we hear from, the better will our policy making be.
Yeah, and people can apply now online using #MyFutureFinance, a 60-second video on social media, sharing your views on the future of finance, and the winners will meet you in Brussels.
Yeah, be coming to Brussels. We'll have time to engage, and you never know what comes of all of this. Because I mentioned a quiz where we had young people coming over. 2 of them happened to be Irish, but we had from all over Europe, and these were school level, and it was great to see them there. And you know what happens? Once you have that enthusiasm, or you've been engaged in something like this, it stays with you. So I hope all of you who will engage in this project will realise that Europe is accessible, that Europe is listening, and that your voice matters.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Are you going to enter?
Yes.
Okay. 1 entry.